record. And hello, everyone, whether you're here live or listening in, it is March 26, 2024, and we're back together for one of our many Tuesday calls. Good to see some of our alums here. And if you're catching us asynchronously, we hope you're doing well as you've stepped into almost Q2 of 2024 and spring, whether it feels like spring outside or not. And so I thought it would be really apropos to dive into actually some of the older body of work, PlanDoTrack and Coaching Business Builder, which has always spotlighted Q2 as the quarter of experimentation. So I want to take us through some exercises to get you thinking about what lies ahead for you. I also want to get you thinking about what's next for you, not only in your work, but also in your business. We are in some interesting times economically. A lot of changes happening in the world. And so what I'm noticing is for coaches, a lot more focus on how do I build a sustainable business? And that's something we've been focusing on for almost 20 years now. Actually, April marks our 20th anniversary. So to just give you a little spotlight of what's coming, a lot of calls. So here are the calls. Some of the dates are shifting. We are back. Today is the 26th, but we're back next week to do another Amplify call. So one of my commitments this spring is about helping people amplify their message in their business. And that's, we're going to be leading up to actually a May 1st Amplify Mastermind. But prior to that, I hope you'll be back April 2nd. We have Amplify Your Coaching Business or Internal Practice via multiple streams of coaching income. That'll be our next call on the 2nd. The call after that is now April 9th. It was marked originally April 16th, but I need to move my son back from university that day. He needs a pickup, and I cannot do that on the road and do a call at the same time. So we're making it a fun call because actually April 7th is our 20th anniversary. So come and join us, please, if you are free, 12 noon on April 9th. We're going to have a celebration to honor this baby known as Potentials Realized that has become more than Potentials Realized. It is group coaching essentials, team coaching essentials, reconnecting workspaces. Really, Potentials Realized is the umbrella that all of our great programming fits under. And as the founder, I'm very proud of this baby. And so please come and join us April 9th. For some celebrations. We'll give you some workspace as well, because these are not just like come and like passively absorb. We want to get you thinking about what is important for you in your work, whether you're external, internal, and all things in between as a coach. 23rd of April, I'm going to take a look back with Ivana. Ivana's going to interview me, and she's going to get me talking a little bit about the last 20 years. There we go. 20 years, not only of business, but of like, where has group and team coaching evolved? And what has been the evolution over these last 2 decades? And it's I think it's going to be a pretty exciting call. I'm not sure where we're going, but please join us April 23rd. And then we're back to Amplify, which is about amplifying you in 6 main areas. And we're going to talk about amplifying your coaching toolkit. It doesn't matter where we are in the world. In fact, I had a conversation less than an hour ago with a coaching chapter, very different time zone. And I said to them, what do your members need? They are group and team coaches. They need exercises and practicalities around group and team coaching. And as you know, that's what we are all about at Potentials Realized. We're a one-stop shop for all things group and team coaching. So please join us synchronously, asynchronously. We're trying to get better because we always have so many things on the go. As you know, it's not just myself. We've got Ivana leading our group coaching training. Kathy comes in for several of our weeks for team coaching training. And you will see Rita, who is with us, but not on camera right now. Rita's in the backdrop of our Amplify, our coaching diverse teams with the work styles and reconnecting workspaces. So you can look at our calendar of events that we do want to spotlight. 2 upcoming programs. Next week, we have actually group coaching essentials starting in an earlier in the day. We've had a lot of requests for, can you do something earlier in the day? So if you or your colleagues in your network really are in time zones that might be in Europe or further ahead, definitely check out our April 2nd launch of Group Coaching Essentials. If you've taken that, maybe you want to move on to the Advanced Practicum. Or if you've done that, maybe you want to join us for coaching diverse teams and groups. And that really looks at the work styles, which I'm going to touch a little bit on today. We also have on Thursdays once a month, this is not an every week, but once a month, Kathy and I lead a coaching supervision group. And you may have been hearing a little bit more about coaching supervision because it is now a requirement for the advanced credential and team coaching. Supervision, I think, for definitely team coaches and increasingly for group coaches is critical because it's a space to start unpacking our work and looking at what is happening. And so if you're interested in learning more about supervision, definitely give either Kathy or I a call. You can find us in our Calendly booking system. Most easy is to book. I always like to just give my Jen Britton, JENNBRITTON, link through calendly.com. And we will have sort of open enrollment, but we do have a hub of people starting with us next week in April. And that's a 5-month commitment. So it'll run into probably September because we usually take August off to give people a break. So that's the calendar events. Join us. And I want to bring you in the room because this is really about you spending time on where you are going. And experimentation is critical for all of our work, whether we are working with clients on experimentation. I'm going to give a little bit of the latest research, or whether we are building an experimentation practice to grow our business. So I want you to lean into the screen. I'm going to give you just a little over a minute, and I'm going to set our timer. I'd like you to think about, what does experimentation look like for you, or what might it feel like for you right now? And I want to bring in that feel like, because I think a lot of times we're just thinking. So what might it feel like? Does experimentation, like for me, I think it means a little bit of play. I love experimenting, and I am not I never take like something that doesn't work as failure. Some people would frame it like that, but because I'm a scientist, it's just, it didn't work the way I think it might have worked. And that's a very different mindset and a different feeling. So I might pick the little play area, which I take as the bottom right? There's sort of like not a playpen or a sandbox, but it's like a box with some stuff we can play with. So I'm going to pause here. Let's take a minute, and I want you to think about, what does experimentation look like, feel like for you in this moment, whenever you're watching today's video. We'll do a 75-minute reflective pause, and then I want to open it up for just a little bit of dialogue before we move on. Timer starts now. All right. So I'm curious, would anyone like to share what they chose and maybe what it represents?
I don't mind. I don't mind.
All right, Rita, what did you go for today?
Great. So the first thing that I was drawn to were the children that were sort of doing, I guess, a plant lab or something like that. And I guess the thought process around it, and this is me in my education background coming through, is that kids don't have inhibition. They don't have imposter syndrome. They don't necessarily fear what they don't know. And that, I don't know if that's just the education system that kind of takes that away from us, or life in general. But it's like I'm almost envious of that, because I wish I could just be as like free spirited that way, to be able to like take risks and try new things sometimes the way that kids do.
And I
That's
know
where my,
you were, if I hope it's okay to share, you were like a classroom-based educator, right? Like
yeah,
you worked in the system with children. I
Exactly.
think it's a really astute, I'm glad you raised that, because as I selected that photo to put this collage together, I was actually thinking about that, like how much how much imprint has there been societally on us in terms of how we foster that wonder and that wow. I know for me personally, I spent so much time as a young adult and early adult, like right into my mid 20s. Well, even through my 20s, actually, in nature. And to
Mhm.
me, nature is always a laboratory, right? Like the plants, you never know, like, is this going to grow? What's it going to grow into? If I put a little bit more water or a little bit more sun or a little bit of shade, what's going to happen here? And a lot of people say to me, like, Jen, you're always experimenting. Aren't you afraid to fail? And it's like, I don't, and that's why I said I view experimentation as a scientist. We don't know what's going to happen. Like, what is failure and what is success in business ultimately, because we don't usually know, even with a home run. So, Rita, thank you for planting quote unquote that seed because I think it takes us to some interesting discussion that we're not going to have time to look at. But I know a lot of us do coach people who bring imposter syndrome. I said to a supervisor myself, I don't have imposter syndrome. And she's like, you must have imposter syndrome. And it's like, maybe in my 20s when I was working in highly machismo environments as a young woman leader, I think I probably had imposter syndrome. But I'm 3 decades past that now. And if I haven't been able to get over it, I probably shouldn't be running a business, to be honest, because we're confronted all the time. But I do put a lot of this back to my upbringing, and like as a young woman too, being encouraged to go out into the woods, like literally, like spend time in nature, experiment, go cut down that tree. Like this is saying a lot about me and my generation, but there was permission to experiment and see what happened without, I think there were some risk boundaries in there, but maybe a little wider risk boundary than we can offer. At least I've been able to offer my own child. And I say that as a parent as well. So any other perspectives? Because there's lots of perspectives around this. What else? What else do we have here? Steph. Yeah.
Yeah, well, it's funny. I had a different spin on the nature picture because
Yeah.
to me, when I experiment, I feel like I'm lost in the woods, right? I
Ooh.
feel like I'm not, I don't know where I'm going and I don't know how to get there. And yeah, so I am one who likes things that are, proven methods. So the imposter syndrome thing is huge. So it's low self-confidence.
Yeah.
So
And it's interesting that you say that, like the A to B is what I sort of see a lot of our work is how do we, and this is what coaching is all about, how do we move from A to B? But one of the things, certainly for potentials realized in the business, we help coaches shortchange and shorten some of that A to B by looking at the proven practices, the best practices, which probably is what's brought you here to today, Steph, because I think, yes, what is the woods? Is it an open woods? Is it a scary woods? Does it have labaria? Labaria are a very poisonous snake that when I worked in the northern edge of the Amazon, it was like the snake you wanted to avoid at all costs because there was no venom, sort of mitigation available nearby. And it was about 6 or 7 years into working in this one location. And I had to take, I'm not going into a lot of detail, hopefully it's not TMI, but I had to shower one day and it was an outdoor shower. And I look over and what's climbing the wall? But the labaria. And I had to hightail it out of that shower into this very open area. Anyways, that's a story for another day. But experimentation, sometimes you can't mitigate against all the risk like the labaria. So the snake always appears. So any other perspectives? I do want to move on and give you a little bit of like, why have I chosen experimentation? So any other perspectives on this? Yeah.
I'm just going to take a quick second if I can, Jen. I picked the paint, but that's too methodological. I can't even say the word.
Methodological. Yeah.
Just because it's so friend centered today, I took my first driving lesson in Italy and driving stick shift from an Italians only speaking instructor.
Wow.
So so experimentation is really leaning into the discomfort of what is.
Yes.
And, I looked at these pictures and I could like logically see it. But as Stephanie was sharing and you were sharing, I'm like, it's what I really like. It's that journey of life. Like, how are we putting
Mhm.
ourselves out of that comfort zone, whether it be in our businesses, whether it be in what we're choosing to develop ourselves in even in what we choose to do on a day-to-day basis. I think life is all about experimentation. And just so I'm sharing, this is my word for 2024. It's my word is experimentation in terms of what I'm doing in business, what I'm doing in life, as I just shared about driving. So
Love it. And thank you so much for bringing that perspective of like, yeah, the fundamentals, right? And to your point, Ivana, how do we lean forward into the unknown? And really, we are continuing to be in a world of unknowns and of rapid change. And I think if anything, it's more important to think about experimentation now than it was ever. So one of the things I wanted to play for you and play with you as well, because really, we can look at things in different lights. Now, this doesn't have the music, but if you're on TikTok, and I know some people in the world may not have access to TikTok in a little while, but maybe they will. I've been doing a series called The Morning Inquiry over on TikTok. This is what it looks like. And every day, this is a short 1-minute video. It's a different word. Experimentation was a word in day 9. I'm going to share this in longer format, but the video gives you a question. So the question was like, what do you want to experiment with? And I want you to think about, as Rita said, like, are you coming to the lab in a way where you're curious? You're like this young woman, like, what is going to happen when I put these two colors together? Like, wow, look at her smile. Like, what do you want to experiment with? And where are you looking at really elevating and anchoring your work? And so I know that last little snippet was a little bit fast, but I first introduced this notion of experimentation as part of Coaching Business Builder and PlanDoTrack. And before we started recording, Stephanie said, well, what's the difference between Coaching Business Builder and PlanDoTrack? Well, I have here at my hand a copy of PlanDoTrack, which looks a little different, but they're a workbook planner. So literally it is part workbook, and there's multiple 125 pages for you as a business owner, or if you're a remote or virtual professional, you'll want to pick up PlanDoTrack. So PlanDoTrack was actually the second book out in the series and was requested by my clients who were not coaches. I started talking about Coaching Business Builder, geared for coaches building their businesses. I even had my hairdresser one day saying, can you do one of these for us as hairdressers? I was like, sure, we could do whatever. And so most of my clients always have been remote professionals. And end of 2018, PlanDoTrack came out for virtual and remote professionals. And it is part planner because in experimentation, we want to track our data. And so I'm going to go a little bit into some of these pages that if you have a copy of either, all you need is one of the two books, PlanDoTrack or Coaching Business Builder. They're very, very similar inside, although a little customized for each audience. But, we're going to talk today about things like the monthly daily tracker. How are you just tracking some of the core things in your business? Because part of experimentation is about gathering data. So let's go to like what really is experimentation. And some of you caught this in that short video that I just played on the screen, but it really is two things: a process of performing a scientific procedure, especially in a laboratory, to determine something, or we can frame it as an action or process of trying out new ideas, methods, or activities. So for you in your world right now, whether you are like Ivana, experimenting in very fundamental life events like driving, being able to get in a car again and drive, because Ivana's been a driver for many years, but this is now a new, I love the way you put it, Ivana, new entry into like the stretching of the comfort zone. Because to drive in another country is not like driving where you learn to drive. It is very different, especially if it's stick shift now, and especially if you're on the other side of the road, and especially if you are having to do it in different signage and different elements on the road. Like I used to have to drive with horse-drawn carts and cars going like 100 and minibuses that were blaring reggae music. And these were on roads with like potholes that would swallow you up. But you had to keep moving because if you didn't, then your car would be like driven over by an army truck sometimes, literally. So, how do we experiment and get out of our comfort zone? And so I just wanted to share with you sort of Experimentation 101. This is my own frame, but it was inspired by a really fun article from UNHCR. So UNHCR is one of the many arms of the UN. I didn't work for them, but I guess my algorithm brings me certain things as treats. And I just Googled like this notion of what is the connection between experimentation and innovation? Because I really do feel we're in this moment of rapid change where to really change and be not necessarily ahead of the curve, but I think of it as to be in control of our destiny and where we're going. We have to innovate. Innovation has been central to this business over 20 years. And so what came up on my feed as I Googled innovation and experimentation was this UNHCR article. And UNHCR deals with refugee issues. It's a really fun article from 2017, which interestingly is when I was writing this book and really starting to introduce experimentation into the world, which I think is more important in 2024 than it was 7 years ago. And so what really is, even from a scientific or sort of a fundamental business standpoint, what is experimentation? Well, we want to first figure out what's the purpose. Why are we experimenting? And that's really asking yourself, what's my purpose here? Why am I doing this? Is this to expand my comfort zone? Is it to move from A to B, literally like Ivana? Is it to grow my business? Is it to try something new? Is it to be challenged and fulfilled because of the challenge? A lot of times I feel I need to experiment in this business because I need to be challenged. I have never been the type of person that can do the same thing as Ivana would say twice. And that's because my strengths, right? One of my strengths, if you look at my strengths profile, is really about innovation and being strategic. It's about helping identify what are the pathways and patterns rather than just doing one thing. And as we get into our purpose and the big why, we want to also, and I think this is an important part of experimentation, we want to, or we are challenged to, examine our assumptions. And as coaches, what do? Right? A big part of our work, many times with leaders, teams, organizations, is helping our clients unearth and explore what our assumptions are and how those are helping or hindering a team, for example. I know as a team coach, one of the most powerful questions I've found over the years to ask a team is like, what assumptions are you making? And it's always interesting to be with teams that might be like, what do you mean? Like, and a blank stare versus teams that are like, oh my gosh, that's such a good question. We haven't really talked about the assumptions. Or you may have teams that are like, here are our assumptions. And again, no surprise that I found a UNHCR because our whole world in that area when I was doing post-disaster work was really, what are the assumptions? And are my assumptions representative of what's happening? Are we exploring it? Are we looking at it? Part of experimentation is identifying and starting to unearth and explore what those assumptions are so that we can then design. And you've been with us probably on many community calls around design. We've done design thinking calls. If you've been with us in group coaching or team coaching essentials, you've been with us to talk about design. Maybe you've been on a design sprint. Like design is an integral part of what we do at Potentials Realized. We incorporate design into everything from leading a call like this to designing businesses. And so experimentation is about leaning into those design skills. It's also about getting things done. And that's where PlanDoTrack and Coaching Business Builder come in. So we don't just do things willy-nilly, right? Like in a world that is ever changing, being planful or taking time to at least stop, pause, and think about priorities, what's working, what's not, is an integral part of not only experimentation, but planning. And that's why PlanDoTrack was called PlanDoTrack. We've got to plan it, we've got to execute it or do it, and then we've got to track it, which is this back part of the experimentation flow. Once I get something done, I have data, right? Like I love numbers. I love data. What does it say? What are the patterns? That's my strategic thinking coming out as well. And with data, I can evaluate. I will see patterns. I'll see patterns if I'm looking at this week, this past month, this past year, this past decade, even. And so part of the inspiration for PlanDoTrack, and I should have color coded this maybe a little differently, but we want to get the plan down. We spend a lot of time here, especially in November and December. We then get into Q1 and we're doing. But are we starting to track? So one of the reasons why this call is falling last week of March, we have an opportunity now to look at what has happened in Q1. What have I done? What does the data say? And how am I going to evaluate it? And that is the tracking piece, which, as I showed a few minutes ago, I think one of the most important forms, and I'm coming to it, so maybe it's a little bit further, I'm just going to go ahead here, is really some of these trackers. So if you have a copy, I know Steph, you said, I brought my copy. There's a monthly content tracker. Maybe some of you are wanting to do more social media. You'll see 12 sets of monthly content trackers so that you can see, what did you post? How many likes did it get? Was there more on Instagram than TikTok? How many people visited the site? I know this may sound dry, but this is part of the tracking element, which, as we go back, we can then have data to really look at. How do we evaluate that and make a change? And iterate is really just, what changes do we need to do as we enter into not the end of the process, but the next cycle. And that next cycle, you might have a new refined purpose. Instead of just saying, we want to serve group coaches, my next purpose might be, I want to serve new group coaches with these programs and experienced group coaches with those programs. And we can start now seeing multiple paths on the go. So I hope this is useful. Just quick thumbs up. How might this experimentation cycle play into your experiments? Like Ivana, you've got unmute. So how might this help you in your personal and or professional experiments right now?
Yeah, thanks, Jen. So for me, this, what's interesting is because I am bringing a new product to market, looking at this kind of is validating. And I think what's really, really, really important, if I can say without getting into the story of it, is the importance of tracking it so you can real time iterate. I'm doing this using bit.ly links to see how many people are registering for my webinars, and then understanding. So as an example, I can track how many people are clicking the Zoom event to register, then how many people are registering to how many people are showing up.
Yeah.
And so that way I can play with language on the Zoom event. And I've done that to really get results. So part of the for me, so thank you for this model. It just reinforces the importance of that more than for the tracking, but so you can iterate, so you can tweak, you can modify, because that's really what it's about when you're in the experimentation. Innovation is that real time. Okay, where am I pivoting to? What is that look like?
What is the next?
Yeah. And without that data, you can't.
What is the next? I just want to flag in, I'm noticing the time, but really, here's what Ray Bradbury said. And this is an old blog post from coachingbusinessbuilder.com. You'll notice that if many years ago, I did this 52-week series, of which week 50 was experimentation. This year, I did not want to leave experimentation to the end of the year, right? We need to bring it forward in a world that is changing. So here's what I wrote. This is 2018. Ray Bradbury, life is trying things to see if they work. In 2018, in the 3 books I published in 2017, I make reference to the need for experimentation in today's VUCA world. We have lived through 4 years of VUCA now, right? Volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. Given that things are changing so quickly, and this is pre-AI, trying things out to see how and if they work can be an important part of the business process. It may be the things that we are not sure of that give us the greatest impact. Part of experimentation means that we're willing to try something else. And another part of experimentation is tracking our results. And I go on to talk about the experience of blogging on the Teams 365 blog, which I decided to start January 1st, 2014. It is now March 2024. I've been blogging for more than 10 years on this. I've seen it gone at one point to more than 10,000 reads a week. And then Google changed. Google changed its whole algorithm. And all of a sudden, those 10,000 readers a week went right down to like a couple hundred. So life happens, but that's just good information. Do I spend as much time on the blog today as I did? Absolutely not. But we still have business coming in. It's presence, it's SEO. So when I get those emails saying, oh, pay for SEO, it's like, I don't think so. We've done blogging, the SEO is pretty much as strong as you're ever going to be. So part of this is feeding into really your mastery as a coach, because as I've shared on other calls, we want to make sure that we have that harnessed business. There really are 5 areas of coach mastery that we work on. It's not just building out your skills and your toolkit, but it's about developing those solid client relationships so that you have data to feed from, right? If you're getting a 0, that's going to give you info on like, who are the clients? Who is your stakeholder? Who is your system? And that's going to feed into your business, your own development, your self-development, and of course, the people that you work in, the diversity that you serve. And part of our work is in this experimentation phase is to really constantly, I think, be asking what experimentation would be useful. So as we go into sort of this last few minutes of today's call, I want you to be thinking about what experimentation would be useful. And what's that purpose? Back to that whole cycle. What's the purpose of why you want to experiment? Because it's going to look different for each one of us as we experiment. You might even choose a different image, right? For that experiment, if you choose something for Q2, because I do want to really think about, we're coming into Q2. Some of you might naturally be the innovative experimenter. So if you've taken, this is not the superpower quiz, but this is the first quiz that I did in 2021. It now forms our work styles body of work. And there's the innovative experimenter, who is typically the team or group member that might be sitting in research and development. They might be the floater who's working across a team. But the innovative experimenter is someone who is all about trying things out. And we need these people in organizations right now in 2024 with so much change on the go. So think about your world. Do you have coaching clients who have experimentation as a preference? And if you do, they're probably an innovative experimenter. What I'll do is I'll include a link in the YouTube video for today to the hybrid work styles. This goes to the hybrid work styles quiz, not the superpower quiz. So we're looking out at our clients as the innovative experimenter. We might see ourselves in that role, but coaching the innovative experimenter requires a different approach, right? They're going to be fast. They're going to get frustrated, as my team can attest to, if I have to look at the details. They're going to get frustrated if they can't run as fast as they want to and start things, but maybe not finish them. So it's part of coaching mastery as well. How do we support the clients? Because they're going to have their own pitfalls and their own flow zones. And that's part of what coaching mastery is, understanding that. You might also see it in yourself, right? So there is a connect here. And I think most of you have been with us, but you might see some of this more experimentation energy in a bunch of these, right? Not just one, but like the creative tool master. They're going to love that sort of like, let me get out my palette and experiment. We're hearing it a lot from ecosystem connectors. Ecosystem connectors experiment across the system. Part of their networking might actually be more experimenting and, really growing their zone. And I would probably guess that many of you, we have catalytic firecrackers, spiral lighthouse coaches on the line. You might also say, you know what, we're experimenters as well. I think really the world is calling on us to experiment as coaches. So I don't want to put it in just one bucket for our superpowers like I have in with our hybrid work styles with the innovative experimenter. So I'm going to leave you with this question. What and where do you want to experiment, right? What is important? Are you going to build out your own elements table? Some of you have been with us on other calls and you've seen the 90-day guide, right? I've done calls on this. This is our Reconnecting Workspaces body of work. And way down again in day 82 of the 90-day guide is this little piece around experimentation. My hue and cry for 2024, and I didn't know this was Ivana's word of the year. It really is, let's experiment more. Let's not wait until day 82 of a 90-day cycle or day 328 of a year. Let's start experimenting, because today's world means we need more experiments. We also need the planning. So just a reminder, don't forget to do your plan. This is a monthly daily tracker. You'll find again back in PlanDoTrack, Coaching Business Builder. This is a completed tracker of mine from September 2018. As you might notice, I do both personal and professional. So I always track on the right side things like, am I swimming today? Am I walking today? And then the other things like, am I promoting today? Am I having calls? Am I doing design work? You can see the world of Jen, and you can see the world of yourself through
like this.
flipping through this. Yeah, I think it's important. And for many of us, we're inspired by seeing the patterns and seeing the color. So monthly daily trackers, grab your planner. If you have not opened the book and it sits on your bookshelf, I want to put a shout out. This Wednesday, I'm going to be doing a quarterly planning review. If you are free between 3 and 4 p.m. Eastern, join me on this same Zoom room, and I will take you through working with your planner with the quarterly, and we'll do our monthly daily tracker at least for April, so that you are ready and prepared for April 1st, which is I think Easter Sunday, to just get rolling for the new quarter. Steph?
So I have a question, and
Mhm.
it might be a common issue that other people who own the books have.
Yes,
I have such an issue writing in the books.
I know.
Any tips for how do I overcome that? I don't want to mess up this beautiful
I don't want to
pristine
miss it.
book.
I know. Well, this is why I do these regular quarterly or monthly, like come and join me so that we can just open the spine and use it. Because unlike a lot of other books where I'd say keep it pristine, like I think the sign of a good use on this, it has tabs, right? Like we start to use it, and it was designed, and I'll say it for the 100,000th time, this book was designed to be an analog resource. When I published it in 2018, we did not have the research we have from now. Digital retention is like an open sieve. We do not digitally retain things. And so there is an actual science, a neuroscience benefit of working through your plans in a paper-based format, which is why you've got 12 months undated. So you can start at any time, which is why I'm doing today's call, end of March, to get people thinking about April. Hey, open it up, start month 1 as your April. Q1 for many businesses, it is the beginning of the fiscal new year anyways, and it's an opportunity. So Steph, I'm gonna flip it back to you. First of all, will you join me on Wednesday at 3?
Yes.
Okay, join me. Will you bring some pens and colored paper, or not colored paper, but like
Pencils,
you can
I
bring
have.
pencils, markers, or I usually use colored pencils because I don't like it bleeding through my pages. That is my little area. I like to keep it that way, but go to the dollar store, right? Go to Dollar
Oh,
Tree or whatever.
I have all the things.
Yeah.
So I will, yeah, and I'm also committing to today spending time contemplating plans and like, how will I set up Q1 for success? Because I've
Love
been,
it.
um, have a deficit in that area. So, yeah, I commit to doing that too.
So set a timer, right? If you have time, head on over to coachingbusinessbuilder.com or PlanDoTrack.com. There's different content on both sites because coaches have different issues sometimes than just a remote worker might. And you'll find a lot about like productivity hacks. I did a series years ago about productivity hacks. One of the things that I think we overdo, right? We don't practice what is known as Parkinson's rule or law, which says that tasks expand to the amount of time we give them. And I think in planning, we know from project management that 10 minutes of planning a day is going to save you 2 hours of unfocused effort. 10 minutes of planning is going to save you 2 hours of unfocused effort. That's an old project management adage. And what it does is it liberates us. We only need to do 10 minutes to just get it like a handle on what am I really doing? And you can do that on the treadmill. You can do it at your desk. I personally take it to the treadmill every morning. And that's my 10 minutes of like, what am I going to work on? And it helps me sift through it. But could be the end of the day, start of the day, midday. Just get 10 minutes done. Don't overdo it, because one of the planning traps is we just plan. We don't do it and we don't track it, which is why it's PlanDoTrack. So we've heard from Stephanie, Ivana, Rita, or Mary Garrett. Any commitments that you would like to share to the public domain? Because it is being recorded.
I was actually going to ask a question about Wednesday. Is it being recorded? Because I literally cannot pop on at that hour.
It is being recorded. I may not share it widely. I may not share the whole thing widely, but it's for people who want to come, and I'll try to put out a little note because it is tomorrow. But yeah, if you're not here at 3, email me and I'll send you the recording link, and it'll be a quarterly planning sprint. Okay,
Perfect.
so that's what I call it, quarterly planning sprint. We're going to use the PlanDoTrack methodology or Coaching Business Builder. So bring your stuff with you, please.
Perfect. Thank you.
Mary Garrett, question,
I
comment?
can't come tomorrow either, but I very much like to see it. And I just ordered the book. So
All right. Well, I will send you the link. I have your email address. I will send you the link to the Dropbox recording. How does that sound?
okay, thank you. I'd really
Yeah.
appreciate it.
And
Thanks.
if people have the, the PlanDoTrack Coaching Business Builder and you haven't used yours in a while, pull it off the shelf, right? If you have a copy, take a picture. Here's what I just invite, like, take a picture of you in the book and then send it to me. And if you want, put it online, put it on social media. People are on TikTok, right? My experiment this quarter has been, how do you use TikTok? And blindly fell into it. I think I'm further ahead on day 80 whatever than I was, but like one of the things they say is post 3 times a day consistently. I only get to 2
On
because I'm
TikTok?
always like, what's one thing that I could do? Well, I could take a picture of myself with my book and say, hey, what are you doing for your quarter? So if you have a copy of the book, take a picture of you in the book and I'll send it to you. If you send me the photo of you in the book, I'll send you the recording. All right, Ivana, I feel like a used car salesman now. So any takeaways that you want to commit to?
I'm going to do this. It's very liberating how you set it up. Like, I didn't know how to use it. So this picture really helps me. It's freeing to know the left on the, like, do you know what I mean? So I can kind of just, what are like exercise can be on the right, but also like just time in nature, like,
Yeah,
decompression time, potential realized time. Do you know what I mean? Like, because I've got different projects on the go. So I like the way you've done this, and the colors make it playful for me, which so I can actually play with that. And if I can say, no, I'm not going to say. I was going to make a suggestion, but I think, Stephanie, your breakthrough will be you writing in the book. So I think that's going to be a breakthrough in your experimentation.
yeah.
So.
And again, hopefully you put a little reminder that this is not just a one-off. I'm going to bring this loop back to experimentation throughout the month of April, right? So one of the reasons why I wanted to spend time next month, and we've got lots of calls booked for, 20th anniversary celebrations, but I want people to get out of the hump, right? I think at this time of year, a lot of our clients, including ourselves, are like, ooh, I didn't get traction on what I said I would. Here's your next opportunity. What would life be like if you even dedicated 3 to 5 days a week on something consistently? And part of the philosophy of PlanDoTrack and Coaching Business Builder is daily steps plus consistent action equals momentum. It's almost a scientific principle, but it's the principle of these 2 books. And I want to be here to support people in like just getting it done, because we don't have time in today's world to not get it done in a way that is freeing and fun. So thank you all. I hope that you'll come back next week, or we've got our April 2nd call. I think I put the topic. Yes, I did put the topic here. Amplify your coaching business or internal practice via multiple streams of coaching income. So that'll be our topic next week. And then April 9th, we're back for celebrations. April 23rd, same time, taking a look back at group coaching. And April 30th will be crafting your next coaching exercise. Yeah. Question, comment?
Yeah,
Question.
comment. Just because I've taken the course and it really does a beautiful job is the neuroscience link with like experimentation as
Mhm.
coaches. What I've really found that useful because it's helped me to embody the neuroscience behind it and even working with clients. So I'm just, because I know we've got one starting in May.
Yep.
I would if you can, Jen, because you do a better job of kind of
Mhm.
sharing the connecting piece to what we did today to the program as coaches as a toolkit. So I
Yeah.
want to just kind of, I don't want to step over that.
Yeah, no, and I'm glad I almost did a slide on the neuroscience because there's a whole science behind planning. So we might, you know, if I had more of me, I would like to keep adding on to the PlanDoTrack Coaching Business Builder playlists. There's a whole playlist, 2 playlists on the YouTube channel, Coaching Business Builder and PlanDoTrack. They're a little dated, but the thing with planning is it doesn't change. The principles don't change in a world of change. So take a look at that, and I may earmark for Q3 the neuroscience of planning, or for May, because we will kick off on Friday, May 5th, I think it is, with the next neuroscience program. So with that, I've gone way over time today. Thanks, everyone. Staff comment, question before we wrap?
Question real quick. Since I've noticed I've missed a couple of these so helpful sessions, where can I find them?
Yeah, so head on over to YouTube and it's
Okay.
Effective Group Coach,
Okay.
Effective Group Coach,
Thank
and
you.
catch up on them, right?
Yes.
Or maybe you'll join us for another program like neuroscience or
Maybe.
the Amplify. So stay
Maybe.
tuned in April. We've got a bunch of stuff on the go, including some more sprints. So stay tuned.
Okay.
All right.
Thank you.
I'll see you tomorrow, Steph, at 3
Yes.
p.m.
Yes.
Have a good one.
Thank you so
Thanks,
much for doing
everybody.
this.
Thanks,
See
Jen.
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Have fun.